All right, gang. Thanks for joining us. We've got 207, 208 Eastern. We're going to make sure we're done by 3 o'clock as promised. Here is the agenda today. We're going to go through some brief intros. You've met Coop. I'll introduce myself, and then we'll roll into the sales pipeline formula. We'll talk about the prospecting scorecard. We'll think about this idea of follow-through sales process. We'll open up to more Q&A, and we'll talk about some next steps. I'd like to make sure everybody has the engaged report. If you got that with you, that would be great. That way you can refer to it. You can take some notes. This report is, I think, emailed to us all weekly. It's updated in real time. So it's going to become really the most important thing that connects you to the results that you're looking for. So let's start with the intros. I am James Rories. I'm founder of a company called Florist Group, and we've been in business since 2006. And I've actually been helping businesses grow their sales organizations for about 30 years. So our organization specializes in working with companies that want to double or triple their revenue in 1 to 5 years. I'm also a customer and partner. So the reason I'm here today is, one, to give you access to my years of experience for whatever they're worth to you, and to tailoring this service to your business. I'm also here as a customer. I'm using the same service that you are, and I'm also going to do my best to walk you through this process and make sure that any questions you may have, we can kind of elevate your understanding of how this works, and also think about how this solution that we're all taking advantage of can be optimized inside your unique situation. So if you've got some unique situations you want to share with us before we get started, please do. So another quick question for the group. How many of you are sole practitioners? There's one rep in the organization using this. And how about 2 or 3 reps? Lee, thank you. Anyone more than 3 reps? Okay, excellent. Thank you. So what I'd love to do is, if you have access to chat, get used to using the chat. I'd love it if you could chat to me the names of your companies, just so I can have a sense of who you are and relate you to the businesses that we are working with. And also, I'd love to just open up the mics if we can, Coop, just for a moment or two. I'd love to hear if there's any burning questions that you're bringing to the table, so that I can think about what I'm going to be delivering today, and actually go to the Q&A here, and maybe even think about taking some notes that we can address later. Anybody want to share some burning questions, some issues you may be having, or challenges? Are you having a hard time finding the unmute button? Let's see.
Hey, James, I'll throw it out there. So
all
this
right.
is
Thanks,
Howard Levine from
Yes,
Reflective Energy Solutions. I hate uncomfortable silence. My biggest issue is just honestly just not getting the response rate on the outgoing emails. Plenty of clicks and things like that, but just not getting direct responses.
Got you. And when you say direct response, you mean somebody saying, "Hey, yeah, let's set up a meeting."
Yeah. Or, hey, no thanks, I'm not interested. I'm not getting either. And I know we've changed the messaging. I know we have a unique situation, but you asked, and that's my biggest concern right now.
Gotcha. Well, we will touch on that. And so I guess and so we'll touch on that, and I'll make sure, and at the end, if I haven't addressed it, Howard, make sure that you bring it up again.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
anyone else?
Note, I just have to jump early at 2:40, but I'll be on next week.
Okay. Thank you. Stephen.
Sure. So I think there's a lot to juggle. So I think at one moment, I'm trying to make sure that I have enough names to put into the system, and I never really know when I'm about to run out. Then I have the responses that come out, and after a while, you sort of keep track of where did I get that list from? Who were they? Did I send them another a follow-up yet. Then you're supposed to go on LinkedIn and try to touch the person there, but there's no time to do that. And then you have to follow up with the people. And whereas, if I met Coop at a function before the pandemic, I'd sort of be able to remember his whole story and attach it to his fate. You can ask me about anybody I've met in the past 50 years, and I can tell you where they live, if they have kids, where we met. But once the person's digital, they become it doesn't matter whether it's Bill Jones, Robert Smith, John, whoever, they just become a mishmash, and you can't even think of your mind of who's who. So I think there's a lot of data to juggle and keep organized. And it sort of becomes like a tsunami after a while. That's my comment.
Excellent. Yep. And Stephen, I was raised as a belly to belly kind of sales practitioner. So it's been a journey for me as well. But thank you for offering that. Anyone else want to jump in?
We just signed up and actually just got off another call with Patrick, and we signed up because we want to really increase the productivity per sales rep, get them having more calls and presentations, and we're really impressed with the professionalism and approach.
Thank you, Eric. Excellent. Do you feel like you're ready to rock and roll, Eric? Do you feel prepared?
We don't know what we don't know, so
okay.
but we're very excited.
All right. Well, we'll do our best to make sure that you are after today. All right. Anyone else? One more person? I love uncomfortable silences. A story, Howard, that I tell often in my training is that when I was a kid, I used to be amazed at Barbara Walters. For those of you who are younger than a certain age, you may not remember her on TV, but she was a great interviewer, right? And what I was always amazed at when I was a kid was at her ability to make anyone that she was interviewing cry just by asking questions. And part of that was allowing them to kind of embrace the uncomfortable silence. They would make a statement and she would just not respond, and then allow them to fill that void with even deeper emotion, deeper insight. And I actually look back to that as a very powerful and profound sales tactic that we can use when we're prospecting as well as when we are selling. All right. Shall we proceed to the next slide, Coop? All right, gang. So look, what I'd like to do first is just kind of remind everybody what the methodology is and you may have, if you were in on the kickoff call with your organization, you may remember Patrick talking about this idea of a predictable revenue model. The methodology that we're following is one where we are really, for a lot of the organizations we're working with, acting as that the top of the funnel, and that service, that predictable, repeatable service that's operating to engage a specific marketplace. And so this idea of product market fit is incredibly important. Again, we've heard some folks who have mentioned, Eric, I think that, or Howard, that you've engaged with us to improve that product market fit and maybe play with some of the messaging and language. And that will continue over time. One of the things that I talk a lot about is this idea of we are searching for a vein of gold. And a lot of companies come into us with the vein of gold already identified. Some, we are helping them search for it. Now, we're not talking about, is your product or service package viable in the marketplace? We're simply looking for that great combination of product market fit and messaging so that we can fill that top of the funnel. And so some of that's research, that's engagement and a predictable process. And then the idea here is that there's going to be, following that is going to be some targeted follow through. Now, for a lot of us, getting maximum value out of this process means investing more time than maybe we have in the past in this lead generation effort. The outcome, however, should be a predictable, repeatable flow of warm and hot opportunities that come to us. A hot opportunity from my perspective is one where someone's reaching out and saying, you know what, I appreciate, we've just been talking about, I appreciate you mentioning it. I'd love to get together with you next week. Or somebody saying, look, I've heard this before. It can't be true, but if you're willing to convince me, I'd be willing to listen. And there may also be folks that I've got a couple of these myself over this week. Hey, we're right now we've blown our budget, but we start our budgeting process in October. Would you mind giving me a call then? So those are all the things those are all the leads I would consider to be warm or hot. The stuff I think we have to work a little harder for would be the stuff that's hidden in or waiting for us to kind of uncover it in our engaged list. So that's the list of prospects who have taken some action, read, clicked, come back to. Sometimes we have people open the email up 15 or 16 times. Those are the folks we want to be paying attention to actually improve our personal ability to drive revenue for our organization. The value here is that I'm actually taking action against warmer opportunities that have been identified by our product market fit and the research that we've done as folks who are going to be ideally suited for us to work with. Now, of course, a big part of this is making sure that timing is right. One of the things that we have to be consistently aware of as we go through this is that in the same way that we were all taught, just because I get a no doesn't mean it's no, never. It's no now. Just because somebody isn't responding to us at this moment doesn't mean they're never going to respond. It simply means that at this moment, it's not a top of mind priority for them. So that should give us all also a stronger sense that there is value in that engaged list. People are not avoiding us or not reaching out to us because they're absolutely not interested at any point in time. It's simply that right now we're asking them maybe to schedule a 10-minute meeting with us or asking them to take some other action. They can't take that action right now or they don't feel like it's a high enough priority. That's fine. But they are still people that we can be engaged with long-term, which is why we invest so much time talking about the steps that you all can take as active participants and partners in this process. Next one, Coop, please. We added this last minute to the agenda, so I'm going to go through this. This is a piece of our training materials that we present to our clients as we walk them through our Sales Leadership Academy. What's really important for everyone on this phone call to know, especially if you're a manager or a leader, what are your numbers? What's the prospecting formula? If you come into a relationship not knowing that formula, then what you don't have is you don't have a perspective on what you can predictably produce. But if you can come into this relationship with your formula, then you can validate the opportunity that it provides to improve your numbers and to save you time. So one of the things that I'd like to encourage everyone to think about is to really define what your numbers are. In this case, we're showing you a formula that says if we're reaching out and driving attention from 200 buyers, we can generally move them through the marketing funnel to the point where we're setting up 10 initial meetings. Those should turn into 5 qualified opportunities, and those opportunities should turn into 1 deal based on the sales pipeline. What's critical here is to think about the way that you are used to going to market and generating leads in a proactive way. And then also think about your sales pipeline, your sales cycle. So this is a confluence of the marketing funnel and the sales pipeline. Just to go one step deeper here, by show of hands, anyone remember the movie Glengarry Glen Ross with Alec Baldwin? You might not know it by looking at me, but I was once compared, thank you, Eric, to Alec Baldwin. Those are the worst days that I can remember of me as a sales practitioner and as a sales leader. In that movie, he talked about AIDA: attention, interest, desire, and action. AIDA really isn't a sales methodology. AIDA is a marketing methodology. It was developed 100 years ago by an advertising executive as a way to move people through a funnel, a marketing funnel, from attention to interest, desire, and action. So I'd like you all to think about, as well as this idea of where NerdWise fits into this funnel for you and your company, right? There's no question that we are building attention or creating attention for you in the initial outreach. The initial outreach is designed to drive interest. Now, what's really important here is, are we leveraging triggers and other types of messaging and positioning that allows us to demonstrate to our buyer that we are speaking their language or inside their head? We are addressing a priority that's top of mind for them. Now, that's, of course, that's a shared responsibility between you and your account manager at NerdWise. Are we hitting that priority? So as you're selling today, outside of your marketing function, please keep in mind the triggers, the circumstance or event triggers that may be sparking active buying cycles for the people that you're working with today. And then get back with your account manager and help them think about how those triggers might play in your messaging. Now, we're not trying to change the messaging every day or every week or every month here. What we're looking for are highly probable ways that we can improve the messaging based on what you know is happening in the marketplace. And the objective is to get inside our prospects' heads and help them understand that we understand where they are, we know their business, and we can help them. Then, of course, there's this idea of creating desire. In many of the emails that you're putting together, there is a hook. There is a statement of some of the logos that you've been able to work with, or some of the results you've been able to achieve. In some cases, we're offering free services for anyone that reaches out. I'm offering a free 1-hour training session, for example, to an organization that's thinking about sales training. Those also have to be considered wisely. What are we offering? Is it the right offer at the right time? Are we offering the right thing to the right contact? All that's going to play, and all that requires us to be thoughtful about what we're doing. And again, the more insight you have about what works outside of this prospecting process, the more effective you can be in partnership with your NerdWise account manager. The other important thing here, gang, to think about is that as you look at the sales pipeline, right? Qualify, recommend, propose, and then finally get to contract. That pipeline is going to be worthless if we haven't done our work up front, targeting the right customers, the right businesses, identifying the right buyers, leading with the right messaging, and bringing people into our pipeline who are well suited, are more qualified to actually buy from us. So this is the other thing I'd like you to be thinking about. If you're feeling like you're not getting the quantity that you want or the quantity that you expect, the first thing I would do is go back to your numbers, go back to your prospecting formula. What is the best case scenario that you've ever achieved when you've prospected without NerdWise? Compare that to what you're getting with NerdWise. The other thing is, I would recommend you release yourself from the numbers game. Numbers are important, but release yourself initially and fall back on this concept of quality. Because the only thing worse than getting a low number of qualified leads is getting a high number of shitty leads. Pardon my French, but the last thing you want from us is to present you with leads that don't close, because now I'm wasting your time. So it's that balance that we've got to strike. Stephen.
Can I ask a question?
Sure thing.
Okay. So before the pandemic, when lots of people weren't using digital marketing, let's pretend you wanted to reach me and my firm. You saw an article about us in the newspaper and you said, this place could really use my help. And you decided to try to create some attention. And on day one, you might call me and say, hey, Steve, this is from the florist group. Here's what we do, blah, blah, blah. And if I didn't respond, you might send me an email a day later, a week later, 2 weeks later. And then if I didn't respond, you might go on my LinkedIn.
but could you just talk for a second about how you did it in, I'm going to call it the brick and mortar world, and why we're scrunching it up so much in the digital world? That's going to sort of help me understand, maybe help some other people to understand getting someone's attention over such a quick period of time, because you can do it so easily with technology, but is it off-putting or is it helpful in the digital world? Could you spend a minute on that? And then
Yeah, I think well, the and just so everybody knows, we're going to mute everyone because I can't take, I'm taking Steve's because Steve's going to be leaving early, but we're going to take questions at the end just so everybody knows. But Steve, is a great question. So here's what I would say. When I, we all had pain last year, or many of us had pain last year, and getting over that pain and then addressing the circumstances as they were was very difficult, especially in our organization. Even though we do leadership development, I was still coaching myself as much as I was coaching my clients. The thing I'd like to just share with everybody is that the predictable revenue model that we are implementing is more than a decade old, right? And we were leveraging this model when the internet, back in early 2000s, when the internet was just launched. Last year, it became really the only thing we could do. And so now, and it looks like everyone's doing it. But I'll tell you what, 90% of the folks that are out there doing it suck at it. So what Stephen is bringing up for me is a very important point of differentiation. Okay, what you want to make sure is that your emails don't sound like the emails that you hate, the emails that you don't respond to. Now, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but what I want you to be thinking about is the differentiation required in the emails that you're sending. It is absolutely required. We are using the same mode of communication, the same channel, but we don't want to sound like all those hackers out there who are trying to, jump on a bandwagon, and then we'll soon be off the bandwagon as soon as things loosen up. So two things. It's old. This methodology is old. It has worked for a long time to warm up those contacts for me to make my phone call. And it's one that will survive all these wannabes who are flooding the market right now because it's the only game in town. Now, the other thing I would say to you is that, so what this means, Steve, to me is that, and I'm going to get into this in a moment, but the idea here is that we do not want to depend upon one channel to go to market. It's like it has always been. Many of us who were belly-to-belly salespeople leveraged events. We went and did networking. We called we called partners who could connect us to people that we typically sell to and had lunch and breakfast with them. We did emails. We did cold calls. We did cold calling, meaning we stopped by a business, handed out our business card, and said, "I'd love to talk to so-and-so about such and such." I mean, that kind of live door-to-door selling was very powerful. So the thing I'd like you guys to think about is what's going to happen is the diversity in the channels that you go to market with are going to get bigger. Leverage, if you're not out there face-to-face yet, leverage NerdWise to provide you with more differentiating digital capabilities. They're out there. NerdWise has access to them, and they deliver those. But also, don't get discouraged. This model has always been around. Make sure your messaging is differentiated, and make sure that you're doing the calling and emailing that you did before. Just do it against that engaged list of warm prospects that we're building for you. Coop, I'm not seeing there it is. Fabulous. Thank you. All right, cool. So follow through process. So I've mentioned this a couple of times, and some folks have mentioned the follow through process as well. What I'd like you to think about here is the amount of time that you're spending here. Now, we've heard some folks say, "Look, this digital world is confounding to me, and there's so much data information. How am I supposed to manage this? What's the best way to do this?" The first thing that we did when we started this process was we upgraded our CRM system inside our organization. We upgraded to make it easier for us to, on a regular basis, as often as we have prescribed, once a day, twice a week, whatever makes sense in our world, to taking that engaged list and importing it into our CRM system. And what we've been able to do is we've been able to leverage the point system that NerdWise creates to help us prioritize the outreach inside our CRM. So it's not me doing that integration. I have someone else doing that, but they're taking the data, uploading it to CRM. And then what's happening is my life doesn't change. When I'm prospecting now this list, I'm prospecting as if I was prospecting anyone in my CRM, as if I was reaching out to anyone in my 50 year, well, not 50 years, my 30 years of doing work. I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do to make sure that the process doesn't become overwhelming. Where does that data live? And are you implementing a predictable, repeatable process inside your business that can scale? Because at the end of the day, if it works for one of you, it will work for 2, 3, 4, and 5 of you. And this will be a great way for you to bring on salespeople and continue to scale your organization. So a lot of you have heard this process before, but I'd like you to think about how, not just that do you understand it, but are you executing it? And how much time are you spending on it? I can tell you, if you're spending Friday mornings for 2 hours once a week, it's not enough time. You've got to be spending every day. In my world, I'm spending a little bit of time every day on this. I'm sharpest in the morning, so I'm doing this typically at 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8 to 8:30. I want to get it done while my mind is sharp. I don't really care if people are in their office that early or not. What I do care about is being able to reach people early before their day starts, get at the top of their inbox or the most recent, right, in their voicemails, which many of us don't respond to anymore. In fact, most folks will tell me in their voicemail, look, I don't check voicemail. If you want to get a hold of me, text me at this number. I get that kind of stuff. So I do it every day for a little bit of time during the morning when I'm sharp and ready to rock. Now, the thing that I would say to you all is many of us go into this process with a mindset that says it'll never work. And that mindset that says it'll never work is the same mindset that causes us to only spend 2 hours a week at it. Now, I don't want to argue about how much time you're spending, but 3 hours versus 5 hours versus 10 hours. It's all relative to your business, to your clients, to what you're selling, and to the market that you're trying to penetrate. But what I would say to you is, if you're kicking off this with an idea or a discouraging mindset that says it's not going to work, you're going to spend less time. Instead, what I would strongly recommend is that you think about the fact that you're investing some money in having a team of people warm up a marketplace for you. And I would go after that marketplace just like you did when you prospected before. Everyone that we're presenting to you is a warmer prospect than you would have had without NerdWise. The idea is, how much more effective can we make you? And so the idea is, really, if you guys know your numbers and you compare the numbers that you have today, how many calls you have to make, how many emails you have to make before you get someone to respond, it should be much less, much fewer. You should be much more efficient than you would have been if you were prospecting without NerdWise. And that's the real test. So what I would strongly recommend is that work your ass off, stay dedicated, execute this process, and invest as much time as you can. Give yourself 2 or 3 weeks of just heads down focus on that list and generate the numbers that will tell you what your operating level is, what your operating norm is from a prospecting perspective. And then what you can do in partnership with NerdWise is continue to develop and refine those numbers. The worst thing we can do is compare our numbers to what we think other people are getting and to what we hear other people are getting. The other thing that I would strongly discourage you from is listening to people in my industry. Don't listen to the people who are trying to sell you prospecting services by telling you that cold calling is dead. They are liars. They're full of crap. They're just trying to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt in you so that you hire them and not do what has always worked. I'm here to tell you that one of the reasons why I'm working with NerdWise is because they are not leveraging that kind of hyperbole to get new customers. They're actually telling customers, look, there is no magic bullet. It is going to require you to continue to do some work, but we can shorten the cycle for you, and we can shorten the amount of time you spend, and we can make you more efficient and effective. The challenge for you is to find your formula, know your numbers, spend the time required to get there and to execute the process. I think we can go to the next slide, Coop. Thank you. So here is a offering of a generic scorecard. You can leverage this. You can also think about if you took a screenshot or want to see a copy of the marketing funnel and sales pipeline that I showed earlier. One is more complicated than the other, but if you want to either one of these or create your own scorecard, we truly believe that if you have a goal and a plan, you have to have a scorecard. In fact, we use the acronym GPS as part of our proprietary materials to help our clients think about it. If you think about the GPS, you turn that thing on when you get in your car before you go someplace you've never been. The same thing applies in business. The GPS in our case stands for goal, plan, scorecard. If you want to get someplace you've never been, develop the goal, create the plan, and then keep score. And the best thing that you can do is bring this scorecard with you to your session with your NerdWise account manager. Share the stats with them. It doesn't do them any good if you just bring conjecture or broad generalizations. Keep score and bring them the scorecard, and then challenge them to help you refine that scorecard and improve in key areas. Also, share, of course, your follow-up mechanisms, the language you use, how you're leaving voicemails, when you're calling, how often you're calling, the amount of time you're investing with them as well, so you can collaborate on best practices. One of the ways that I even use my account managers is I attempt to get best practices that they are exposed to across multiple NerdWise clients to see if any of those best practices can work for me. But taking the responsibility to keep track of the investment that you're making is the best way to improve the return on the investment that you're making in partnership with NerdWise. So here, if you look at this model, pursued, reached, and warmed up, this is the part of the scorecard that NerdWise is delivering. So I would strongly recommend that you engage your account manager and keep track of how many folks have been pursued, how many have been reached, how many have been warmed up. The warmed up is your engaged list. And then the question is, how many have you followed through on, and how many of those have resulted in meetings? This is not something, at least in my world, I recognize that I cannot continue to run my business as I always have and get max value out of NerdWise. I have to make time for it, which means I have to take other things off my plate and distribute those to folks that are capable of doing it so I can focus on prospecting. It's a matter of investing the time and, of course, tracking the results. We have about 15 minutes left. I've done a ton of talking. I hope that has helped. I hope also that what I've shared has maybe sparked some additional questions or concerns or questions or insights from you. Share them now. We've got about 10 minutes or so that I can answer some questions before I get you out. to take on the rest of your day. Your mute button is lower left corner of your Zoom screen. You know, I would welcome also, oh, here we go. I would welcome also any,
Hey, James.
yep, thank you. Anybody from
So-
NerdWise that wants to jump in as well with some observations, please do. Go ahead.
So my question is, this type of thing that you're covering now, is this the type of training that our reps are going to be getting in their weekly sessions with NerdWise?
This stuff is, yes, this is, when you say your reps, how many reps do you have?
I have 3 reps that are going to be using NerdWise plus myself.
Okay. If you come back to these sessions on a weekly basis, yes, you're going to find someone else other than me here next week. You'll be going through this level of training, but we'll also allow you guys to kind of bring the issues that you have to bear so that we can customize the sessions for you.
Okay,
Is there anything
thank you.
is there anything you'd add to the training based on your experience today, Eric?
No, I'm trying to forget all of my past experience.
Okay. You know what, when we beyond the NerdWise training, we oftentimes, our organization does work with NerdWise customers for next level training, right? So it's this question of, when I get a decision maker on the phone, how should that script go, right? There's not a lot of training from NerdWise is going to kind of take you into how to write that script, right? Or to give you the chance to test those scripts over time. But that's this kind of stuff that would be available outside of the traditional model from someone like me. And we have very simple, half-hour programs to full-on training sessions. But the idea is, to recognize that marketing funnel and that sales pipeline, there are lots of points of opportunity for improvement. So I love what you said, this idea of trying to forget what you thought you learned before, that idea of getting rid of your biases and coming here with a curious, open mind and always asking deeper, harder questions. Fantastic. And if you ask a question that NerdWise can't answer, they would probably reach out to me, and then I could probably, we could have a conversation to see if there's a way we can help.
Thank you.
Pleasure. NerdWise has a great, very powerful ecosystem around it that really does add a lot of value to its vast pool of customers.
The other thing to just maybe add to this conversation is people should be using this version 2.0 predictable revenue model, whether it's with NerdWise or with themselves or with another partner. Like, that's all right. Like, the point is, like, that's a very fundamental pillar to create scalable success and predictable success. And in order to do that, if you were doing it on your own or to do it internally, it's going to take you 15 to 20 hours even to get like an average result. So our hope is that by getting you to the 50-yard line every single day of every single week, you can take those 20 hours that you won't be in the trenches, putting these systems and these engines and this messaging together, to then maybe dedicate an hour at least once a day to doing the best practices for following up and a targeted follow-up using those best practices. Because that's where, as James says, that's where the vein of gold is going to be. We will have some easy wins, some very easy, layups that come our way, but really the goal is to warm up that database of warm prospects and then go hunting and fishing and go for the heart. That's where the magic is really going to be made.
Right. And if you're good at this, and I'll speak to Eric since you've got reps, if you're good at this and you can get your reps to be good at this, we're big believers in this idea of identifying predictable patterns of success. And so what we bring our clients and what NerdWise is bringing to the market are predictable patterns of success that we've identified, but they're not yet tailored or customized, right, fully to your business. The job of your 3 reps, Eric, would be to tailor and customize these even further to your business and to build a model then that would allow you to essentially pre-fund the addition of more salespeople. That would be the ultimate goal. So for anyone here, the other benefit of investing the time and effort here is really to create the scale that we all want, the kind of scale that can be delivered by additional employees, and that kind of the scale that can be, we can improve the results and return of that investment by having a partner like Nerdwise backing us up and actually de-risking that investment, because we've got this model working for us that didn't cost us, hundreds of thousands of dollars to build in terms of systems, learning process, people, et cetera.
That's great.
I'm going to allow for another uncomfortable pause for anyone else who has any questions.
And remember, if you do have a question, you can either write it in the chat or you can unmute yourself in the Zoom portal and go ahead and just ask. Definitely have time for at least maybe one or two more questions. And again, these weekly trainings will happen every Wednesday. They might not happen next Wednesday because there's a different live event, but every Wednesday beyond that, these are going to be here to empower you, to enable your success, to ask for the questions or ask the right questions, the tough questions that maybe your account manager can't lead or direct, for you. So bring your wish list items here, bring your top engagement report, bring your scorecard, and let's manage the numbers because that's really what's going to tell the story of success or not. I really believe in using that scorecard and really leveraging the best practices on that top digest, and numbers typically do not lie. So, but any more questions? James is a great guy. Got plenty of knowledge up there.
Well, thank you, Coop.
Yeah. And it can be from Team Nerdwise as well. So if, James Powell's got a question, or Brianna, or anybody, feel free to jump in.
Actually, I had a question.
Sure. Sarain?
Yeah, thanks. When you're going through and you're choosing your target market to begin with in the very beginning stages, generally, who your customers are to start with. Is that the best place to start for, trying to figure out how to phrase this exactly. If you are brainstorming and you decide that you might have another market that you want to add on to your existing customer target, when would be a good time to add that into a campaign?
That's a great question. So the work that we do is very strategic for organizations. So I'm going to start with a strategic answer. And if it's not detailed enough, let me know. When we think about launching a new product or expanding into a new market, we have to make the decision first, is the investment that we're making, and in this case, in Nerdwise, is it a research investment or is it an investment designed to drive scale and growth? If you're entering a new market and you don't have any customers yet in that market, and you're not really sure about what's going to move that market to buy from you, then I would call it a research engagement. But if you do have customers in that market and the idea is now I want to scale and invest in that market, we would call it a scalability investment. The thing that I would say to you is when you're looking at your customers or your potential customers, I would encourage you to use a model that we use. Everyone's probably heard of ICP, this idea of ideal customer profile, ICP. We think in terms of your always customer profile. We believe the market is made up of your always buyers, your never buyers, and your sometimes buyers. It's really helpful to think about the profile of those three types of buyers. Now, we believe sales is a game of probability. So when I say always, I mean probability of 90% that they're going to buy from you when they meet you. What that means is that there is a customer out there of a certain type and size in a certain industry, running a certain business, who is facing a certain trigger or a circumstance and has had maybe an experience in the past that makes them more likely to align with your value proposition, to pay attention to the differentiation that you bring to the marketplace. So for example, we talk about this idea of helping companies that want to double or triple their revenues in 1 to 5 years, because we're positioning ourselves against trainers who just train salespeople. What good does it do? Our position is, what good does it do to have 10 salespeople all selling 10 different ways? Why don't you identify one predictable pattern of success that you share across the entire team and scale your organization strategically, right? So we differentiate ourselves that way. How do you differentiate yourselves? And what is the profile of that always buyer? What I would strongly recommend is doing that work first and then present that to NerdWise. NerdWise will actually help you then think about how to take that profile, that always customer profile, map it to your product service package, and give you maybe even a subset of that that would be ideal for a campaign. But what we're always doing here is we're always looking at the fit between the market we're going after, your always customer profile, and then the problem that you're offering serves or that you're offering addresses. If we can get those three things lined up in the context of a campaign, we're golden. If you can bring more knowledge about what has worked and not worked in the past to that conversation, then we can turn it from a research exercise into an exercise of driving scale. Did that help? And if it didn't, tell me.
No, yes,
You
that
won't hurt my
helps.
feelings.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. I love the idea of the always, sometimes, never buyer. You'd be surprised how many salespeople get stuck on the never buyer. About 58% of sales pipelines, B2B sales pipelines, are made up of people who will never buy from your salespeople. It's a lot of wasted time. Anyone else want to join in? James, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah. I have a question for you that some of my clients, that I'm trying to help some of my clients with, and it's in regards to the responses that they get from our campaigns. And I know that I've been coaching them on responding to, some individuals, that some prospects that may say like not interested or no thank you. And I know that it's important to respond to those emails, but I just wanted to maybe get some advice from you on really like when should you not respond to somebody? Or is there a situation where you shouldn't respond to somebody's email if they've said not interested? Or
Yeah. Well, I think Patrick, I think Coop, I think a lot of folks would say, look, if somebody is to the point where they don't want to hear from you anymore, then don't push it, right? No salesperson is going to be slick enough to make that work today, but it doesn't mean there are no never. So the first thing I'd recommend is patience. If you can't think of how to do it today, and you can't think of, and you can't get good advice from anyone else on how to do it today, wait 3 months. Things will change in their life, and they will thank you for reaching back out to them. Now, the best way to respond, I actually just got a response, James, to a campaign that I'm running with NerdWise, and it's from the CEO, right? So here's a typical response that we may get. Hey, James, I forwarded your note below to our business development director. If she's interested, she'll be in touch. How do you respond to that? Right? Most people on this call would respond exactly the wrong way to that message. First off, most of you would believe them and say, okay, cool, they don't have to do anything. There'd be some subset of you that would respond, right, in a way that where you use weak words, where you respond in a way that it's just fluff, like these words like checking in and touching base. There's no executive on the planet that has time to touch in or check for a check-in or to touch base with you. What is the reason for your outreach? So one of the things that's interesting is that many of us have to relearn how to engage an executive through email, right? The way to connect back with someone like this is you send 2 emails, right? You're going to send one to the business development director. You're going to send one to the CEO who sent the email out, but you're not going to use a response that's, again, weak or not relatable to that CEO. You're going to respond with a problem that CEO is likely to have. And you're going to connect that problem back to the offer you made in your email to give them a hand, right? In my world, the problem is your sales team effective enough? Would you be open to a conversation to discuss the effectiveness of your sales team, to discuss your go-to-market strategy, to discuss your ability to effectively bring on new salespeople, to discuss your ability to effectively ramp new salespeople to break even? There's a whole host of questions that I've perfected over the years to identify those challenges that a CEO might have. That's your job as well. So what I would say to you is, the answer to your question, James, is yes. Don't respond if you're going to piss somebody off. Have patience. We'll do it in 3 months. But in the meantime, make sure that your responses and follow-ups aren't weak. They are direct and to the point. They're designed for the person you're talking to, and they're designed to put you in their head and address a priority that is likely to be on their mind. A CEO is not going to be thinking the same way as a business development director.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Awesome.
We got 20 seconds, Coop.
Well, any last questions before we kind of sign off and give some next steps for when our next virtual training is going to be? Any last questions? Awesome. I'll take silence as a no for today, and know that everyone here at NerdWise is always available. Folks like James Rory's are available to help at a higher level when it comes to sales best practices and how to get to your expected destination or your desired destination. And know that these weekly trainings will be happening 99% of the time on Wednesdays, starting at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that you can always, shoot us an email if you want to be included, speak with your account managers. I'll be having a lot of customer communications through email, but my point is these are going to be available to enable your success to a higher level. So take advantage of them. You, your team members, your company, we're here to assist and make sure that you're all supported and seeing higher levels of success. So next week, there won't be a training, but there will be another live event that's happening at 3 p.m. And every week beyond that, for the foreseeable future, we will have a seasoned sales coach, someone like James Rory's, available on Wednesday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. All right. Well, with that, James, any final words?
It was a pleasure meeting everybody. And if you're curious, I am a partner of NerdWise. If you have any needs, go to our website, floristgroup.com. There's lots of free tools in the tool section. We have a podcast, we have events. Many of those are done in conjunction with NerdWise. Feel free to take advantage of those resources. And there's a Let's Talk button there as well if you want to hit me up and schedule some time to chat. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you for joining in, and we'll see you all very soon.